My mom gave everyone matching gifts except my son. He doesn't deserve one, she said loud enough for everyone to hear. Her favorite granddaughter got two. I stayed quiet, watched my son pretend he didn't care, then stood up and said, "We're done here." 2 hours later, Mom messaged, "You still owe me for dinner." I just laughed and reminded her of every payment I'd made in the last 5 years. I, 34M, watched my son's face go completely blank when my mother handed him nothing. Not even a card. Just air and silence while every other grandchild sat surrounded by wrapped boxes and tissue paper. Christmas morning at my parents' house. The tradition we'd kept for 14 years, ever since my son was born. Everyone gathered in the living room, coffee brewing, cinnamon rolls cooling on the kitchen counter. My mother always made a production of gift-giving. She'd stack everything by the fireplace days in advance, wrapped in color-coded paper, so she could remember who got what. This year, she'd gone all out. My sister's 3 kids got matching remote control cars. My brother's 2 daughters received identical jewelry boxes with their names engraved on the lids. Even my cousin's toddler, visiting from 2 states away, got a stuffed elephant bigger than his head. My son sat on the floor between his cousins, 14 years old, and trying so hard to look like he didn't care. I knew that look. I'd worn it myself growing up in this house. That careful mask that says everything's fine when your insides are twisting. My mother called out names one by one, handing over gifts with theatrical flair. She saved my niece for last, my sister's oldest daughter, the golden child of the family. 2 enormous boxes, both with her name on them. My mother announced loudly that she deserved something extra special this year for making the honor roll. My son had made honor roll too. I'd sent my mother the report card myself, thinking she'd be proud. She finished distributing everything and settled into her armchair, surveying her kingdom. My son just sat there, surrounded by wrapping paper that wasn't his, watching his cousins compare their gifts. Nobody said anything. My sister was busy helping her youngest open his car. My brother was on his phone. My father had conveniently disappeared to the garage. Then my mother's voice cut through the room, loud enough that everyone stopped what they were doing. She wasn't even looking at my son when she said it, just announced it to the air like she was commenting on the weather. "He doesn't deserve one." The room went silent. My sister's hand froze mid-tear on a piece of wrapping paper. My brother actually looked up from his phone. My son didn't move, didn't blink, just kept staring at the carpet like he could burn a hole through it with his eyes. I felt something inside me go very still and very cold. My mother continued talking, explaining to my sister that some children need to learn that gifts are earned, that respect goes both ways, that she wasn't running a charity. My son had apparently been rude to her last month when we'd visited for Thanksgiving. He'd contradicted something she'd said about politics. Corrected her, actually, with facts he'd learned in his civics class. She'd been holding on to that for 5 weeks, waiting for this exact moment. I stood up. Everyone looked at me. My mother stopped mid-sentence, her mouth still half open. I told my son we were leaving. He looked up at me, confused, probably thinking he'd done something wrong. I told him again, gently this time, that we needed to go. He stood up slowly, and I could see the relief flooding his face even as he tried to hide it. My mother asked where we thought we were going. Christmas wasn't over. We hadn't even had breakfast yet. I didn't answer her. I just walked to the entryway and got our coats. My son followed me like he was afraid I might change my mind. My sister called after us, saying I was overreacting. My brother said I was being dramatic. My mother said I was raising my son to be entitled and disrespectful, that I was proving her point. I turned around in the doorway and looked at her. Really looked at her. This woman who'd raised me to believe that love was conditional, that approval had to be earned, that family meant keeping score. I told her we were done here. Not just with Christmas morning. With all of it. Then we left. The drive home was quiet. My son stared out the window, watching the houses blur past with their Christmas lights and inflatable lawn decorations. I asked him if he was okay. He said he was fine, but his voice was too tight. I told him his grandmother was wrong. He didn't respond. When we got home, I made us pancakes. We ate them in front of the TV, watching whatever movie was playing on cable. My son went up to his room afterward and didn't come down for hours. I let him have the space. 2 hours after we'd left, my phone buzzed. A text from my mother. Short and direct, like she was settling a business transaction. It said I still owed her for dinner. She'd bought the ingredients for Christmas breakfast, and I'd walked out. so I needed to send her money for our portion. I actually laughed out loud, sat there on my couch, phone in hand, and laughed until tears came to my eyes. Then I opened my banking app. I scrolled back through 5 years of transaction history. Every payment I'd made to my mother, all of them documented with dates and amounts. I started making a list. The new roof she needed 3 years ago. $4,500, paid in full. She'd said it was an emergency, that she and my father couldn't afford it on their fixed income. I'd emptied my savings account. The medical bills from my father's surgery 2 years ago, $3,200. She'd called me crying, saying they were going to lose the house if they couldn't pay. I'd taken out a personal loan. The property taxes, 18 months ago, $2,800. She'd said the bank made a mistake with their escrow. I'd pushed back my son's braces by 6 months to cover it. The car repairs, 1 year ago, $1,500. The transmission was going, she'd said. They needed the car to get to doctor's appointments. I'd worked overtime for 3 months. The new furnace, 6 months ago, $3,100. Winter was coming. My father's lungs couldn't handle the cold. I'd canceled a vacation I'd promised my son. Groceries, utilities, insurance deductibles, prescription costs. Little amounts scattered through the months, 100 here, 200 there. She always had a reason. Always an emergency. Always something urgent that only I could help with. My brother made more money than I did. My sister's husband was a lawyer. But I was the one she called. Every single time. I added it all up. $17,000 for $100. In 5 years. I took screenshots of everything. Every transaction, every text message where she'd asked for money, every promise to pay me back that had never materialized. I organized them into a folder and created a document listing each payment with its date, amount, and reason. Then I sent it all to her. Not just her. I sent it to the family group chat. My mother, my father, my siblings, my aunt, and uncle who'd been at Christmas. Everyone who'd sat in that living room and watched my son get humiliated. I wrote one message to accompany it. I told her to deduct the cost of breakfast from the $17,000 she owed me and let me know when she planned to pay the rest. My phone exploded. My mother called me immediately. I didn't answer. She called again. I declined it. She sent a stream of text messages calling me cruel and vindictive and hateful. She said I was trying to embarrass her, that money between family wasn't supposed to be kept track of, that I was weaponizing her vulnerability. My sister messaged privately, saying I'd gone too far. Everyone knew about the money. Now, and my mother was humiliated. She said I should have handled it privately, that I was tearing the family apart over pride. My brother didn't say anything directly, but his wife sent a message asking if the numbers were real. When I confirmed they were, she went quiet. My aunt called. She said my mother was crying, that I'd ruined Christmas, that family was supposed to forgive. I asked her if she'd be willing to lend my mother $17,000 since family helps family. She hung up. My father sent one text. He asked if I was serious about being done. I told him I was. He said he understood and that he was sorry. Then nothing else. The messages kept coming all evening. My mother demanded I delete the messages from the group chat, said I was a terrible son, said she'd never forgive me for this. My sister said I was being petty. My brother's wife asked detailed questions about the roof payment. I muted the group chat and put my phone face down on the counter. My son came downstairs around 8. He asked what I was doing for dinner. I said I was going to order pizza. He said that sounded good. We didn't talk about Christmas morning. We didn't talk about his grandmother. We just ate pizza and watched another movie. And for the first time all day, he actually smiled. Update 1. 3 days passed before things got interesting. My mother stopped texting. The family group chat went silent. I figured everyone was either furious with me or too uncomfortable to say anything. I didn't care much either way. My son seemed lighter, happier. He'd stopped checking his phone every 5 minutes like he was waiting for an apology that would never come. Then my brother called. Not texted, actually called. That was unusual enough that I answered. He got right to it. He wanted to know if I had records of everything I'd sent in the screenshots, actual bank statements and documentation. I told him I did. He was quiet for a moment, then asked if I'd ever gotten anything in writing from my mother about paying me back. I said no. It was always verbal, always urgent phone calls or tearful conversations. She'd promised to pay me back when things got better, when my father's disability came through, when they refinanced the house. The specifics changed, but the promise was always the same. I'd believed her because she was my mother. My brother said he'd been doing some thinking. He wanted to know about the roof specifically. I told him what I remembered. She'd called me in a panic, said they'd gotten quotes and the cheapest was $4,500, that they needed it done before the next rain or the whole ceiling would collapse. I'd sent the money within 2 days. He went quiet again. Then he said the thing that made my stomach drop. He'd helped my father clean the gutters that same year. The roof was fine. A few worn shingles, maybe, but nothing critical. Nothing that required emergency replacement. I asked him what he meant. He said exactly what it sounded like. The roof didn't need replacing. Not that year, anyway. They'd had it redone the previous summer after a hailstorm. Insurance had covered most of it. He remembered because he'd helped my father pick the shingles. The pieces started clicking together in my head. The medical bills, my father had government insurance through the VA. The property taxes, they'd refinanced 2 years before that. The escrow should have been fine. The furnace, they'd replaced it 4 years ago. I remembered my mother bragging about the energy-efficient model. I asked my brother why he was telling me this now. He said his wife had been asking questions. She was good with money, worked as an accountant, and the numbers in my screenshots didn't make sense to her. She'd started doing math, cross-referencing timelines. Too many emergencies, too many disasters that somehow only I knew about. He said he'd talked to my sister too. She'd admitted that my mother had asked her for money once, for the same property. Tax emergency. My sister had said no because she'd just paid for her daughter's braces. My mother had never mentioned it again. Never acted like it was still a problem. I felt sick. My brother asked what I was going to do. I said I didn't know yet. He told me he believed me, that his wife believed me, and that I should probably talk to my father directly. Then he hung up. I sat with that information for a day, turned it over in my head, tried to find explanations that made sense. Maybe I was misremembering dates. Maybe the emergencies were real and my brother had his timeline wrong. Maybe I was looking for reasons to justify my anger. But I knew. Deep down, I already knew. I drove to my parents' house the next evening. My mother's car wasn't in the driveway. She had her book club on Thursdays. My father was home alone, watching a game show in the den. He looked surprised to see me, but let me in without argument. Asked if I wanted coffee. I said no. We sat in the living room, the same room where my son had been humiliated less than a week ago, and I asked him about the money. He didn't lie to me. Maybe he was too tired. Maybe he'd been waiting for this conversation. He confirmed what my brother had said. The roof had been fine. The medical bills had been covered. The property taxes were paid automatically through escrow. The furnace was still the same one from 4 years ago, running perfectly. I asked him where the money went. He looked at me with this exhausted sadness and said he didn't know all of it, but he knew some. My mother had been remodeling the house, bit by bit. New furniture for the guest room nobody used. Expensive curtains. A smart thermostat. A new deck out back that I'd never seen because I always came in through the front. She'd been taking trips with her friends. Weekend getaways to casinos, spa resorts. She'd bought jewelry. Not a lot at once, just pieces here and there. Things she'd wanted. He said she'd told him it was her money from selling. Some old family heirlooms, from her part-time job at the library. He hadn't questioned it because he didn't handle the finances. She'd always managed the money, even before he retired. I asked him why he let her ask me. Why he never said anything when she called me with emergencies that didn't exist. He said he didn't know about most of them. She handled the phone calls when he wasn't around. By the time he found out I'd sent money, it was already done, and she'd explain it away as a miscommunication or say that I'd insisted on helping. He'd believed her because, well, she was his wife of 40 years. He apologized. Said he should have paid more attention, should have asked more questions. He looked old sitting there, smaller than I remembered. I asked him about my son. About Christmas morning. If he'd known she was planning to exclude him. He said yes. She'd told him the night before. He'd argued with her about it. Said it was cruel and unnecessary. She'd said my son needed to learn respect, that I'd raised him to be mouthy and disrespectful, and she wasn't going to reward that behavior. He'd gone to the garage Christmas morning because he couldn't watch it happen. I left without saying much else. There wasn't anything to say. Update 2. The family fractured faster than I expected. My brother's wife started asking my mother direct questions in the group chat. Polite at first, almost innocent. She asked about the roof. Mentioned that her records showed my parents' homeowner's insurance had paid a claim that year. Asked if maybe there had been 2 roof issues and the insurance covered one. My mother didn't respond. My sister jumped in defending her, saying we were all ganging up on her over a misunderstanding. My brother's wife wasn't confrontational, just persistent. She asked about the medical bills next, mentioned the VA benefits my father received, asked if maybe those bills were for something the VA didn't cover. Still no response from my mother. My aunt, my mother's sister, sent me a private message. She said she'd been thinking about things, about all the times my mother had complained about money, while somehow always having funds for her hobbies. She asked if I remembered my grandmother's engagement ring. I did. My grandmother had promised it to me before she died, said she wanted my son to have it someday to give to someone he loved. After the funeral, my mother said she couldn't find it, said it must have been lost or maybe stolen during the estate sale. I'd been heartbroken, but I believed her. My aunt said she'd seen my mother wearing it at Thanksgiving. Not the whole ring. She'd had the stone reset into a pendant. My aunt had complimented it, and my mother had said it was a gift she'd bought herself, something she'd saved up for. I felt the anger return, sharp and clean. My mother finally broke her silence with a long message to the family chat. She said I was turning everyone against her, that she'd made mistakes with record-keeping, but her intentions were always good. She said she'd helped me countless times over the years too, babysitting my son, hosting holidays, being there when my ex-wife left. She said love couldn't be reduced to spreadsheets and bank statements. My brother's wife responded with a simple question. Would she be willing to show her bank statements from the past 5 years? The chat went dead quiet. 2 days later, my father moved out. He didn't make an announcement, didn't explain himself in the group chat. He just packed some bags and showed up at my door, asked if he could stay in my guest room for a while. I said yes. He told me he'd confronted my mother about all of it. The money, the lies, the ring. She'd admitted to most of it, justified it as deserving nice things after years of sacrifice. She'd raised 3 children, she'd said. She'd earned the right to enjoy her retirement. The money I'd sent was just compensation for everything she'd given up. He'd asked about my son. About Christmas morning. She'd said my son was disrespectful and needed to be taught a lesson, that excluding him was tough love. That's when my father had started packing. My son handled having his grandfather around better than I expected. They'd never been particularly close. My father was quiet, passive, always fading into the background while my mother ran the show. But without her there, my father was different. He helped my son with his homework, taught him how to change the oil in my car, watched baseball games with him. One night my son asked me if I hated my mother. I thought about it carefully before answering. Told him I didn't hate her, but I was done letting her hurt us. He seemed to understand. My mother sent me one final text. She said I'd destroyed the family, that I'd turned everyone against her over money that didn't matter. She said when I was old and needed help, I'd understand what she'd sacrificed. I blocked her number. My sister stopped speaking to me entirely. She'd made her choice. My brother stayed neutral, kept communication open with everyone. His wife sent me a private message saying she was sorry for what I'd discovered, but glad I knew the truth. The money was never mentioned again. My mother never paid back a cent, and I never expected her to. That wasn't the point anymore. 6 months later, my son made honor roll again. This time, I took him out for dinner at the nicest restaurant in town. Just the 2 of us, celebrating his accomplishment. He ordered steak and ate every bite. We talked about his plans for high school, about the clubs he wanted to join. On the way home, he thanked me. Not for dinner, for leaving that Christmas morning, for standing up for him when it mattered. I told him he deserved better than what she'd offered. He said he knew that now. My father still lives with us. He's seeing a therapist, working through 40 years of looking the other way. He and my son have gotten close. Sometimes I hear them in the garage, working on projects, talking about things I'm not part of. It's good for both of them. I haven't spoken to my mother since I blocked her number. I hear things through my brother occasionally. She's still hosting holidays, still holding court, but the gatherings are smaller now. My sister goes, and a few cousins. My brother shows up out of obligation, but doesn't stay long. She tells people I abandoned her, that I'm cruel and ungrateful, that she doesn't understand what she did wrong. Maybe she really doesn't. Maybe in her mind, she was entitled to everything she took. Maybe she genuinely believes my son deserved to be humiliated for contradicting her. I don't think about it much anymore. I've got better things to focus on. My son is thriving. My father is healing. And I'm learning that sometimes the best thing you can do for your family is to protect them from the people who are supposed to love them most. We're building something different here. Something honest. Something where love isn't conditional and respect goes both ways. My mother was right about one thing. Family is important. She just never understood what that actually means.